Hi, Crystal. Can you hear? Oh. Hi, Crystal. Can you hear me? This works. It looks like we have Crystal here.
Yep, I'm here.
Crystal, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
How about Carolyn? Can you hear me? How about the chat? Can see if that can go through there. I'm not sure everyone can hear me. I do know that the recording is taking place. Everything looks like to be working. And we did have a few class members who won't be able to make it this evening. There's some graduations tonight, some other issues that kind of came up with the change of date. I actually presented, great, thank you, Carolyn, last evening at our comprehensive planning committee meeting on STEM and education within our district. So I want to wait just a few more minutes to make sure we can gather everyone here. Looks like we have another participant on board. I'm going to keep the chat box open just here to the side. Whoops, not like that. Perfect, thank you. And can everyone see my screen? It should say week 3 session. It's a PowerPoint slide. Great. I've uploaded this into our Moodle class, and you can find it in 2 different places. At the very top with some of the resources, it says course PowerPoint slides, and on right underneath week 3, the very first thing right above your overview will now say week 3. It'll have today's date and the PowerPoint slides there as well. So that way you can go back and get the slides if you'd like them. I'm also going to be placing this recording in the underneath week 3 as well. And that way everyone will have access to that, especially those who were unable to join us tonight. So I'm going to get started, and that way it looks like we have just about everyone joining us who was able to make it this evening. So I will give you a little overview of kind of how I run the sessions here online. I will start by going over kind of what the weekly assignments have been, a check-in, kind of let you know where I am with grading and that kind of thing. We'll go through some of the weekly discussions, and I will open it up for discussion or comments at any time when you guys want to chime in. I think most of you are probably muted from your end, but if you'd like to unmute and join in discussion, that is more than welcome. I will open it up for questions as we go. And then I will always do, at the end of every session, a check-in on all of the major assignments and answer any questions on any of those. So that's kind of how I will run our sessions each week. The one of our sessions out of the next two, I do want to talk a little bit about STEM, probably in our last one, and some additional math resources that I don't have in the course yet, but I'm attempting to gather as a revamp for the next time I teach the class. I want to share those with you from Dr. Nikki that I've been kind of working with and studying in math education. So that'll be to come in the next few weeks. So the weekly check-in today, I just want to make sure that everyone is doesn't really have any questions about our assignments. Every week we do have Forum A and Forum B for week 1, week 2, etc. The first one is a reaction to the weekly assignments, where you are posting yours by Sunday and responding to everyone else by the following Wednesday, because our weeks run on a Wednesday to Wednesday. In District B, or the Forum B, the district analysis is really just between you and myself, and we will be kind of taking a dive into the district and what, as a math coach, things that you would want to look at in regards to curriculum and instruction as a math coach in a district, especially if you're moving districts and need to kind of make it an evaluation of the district and where they are. The instructional strategies is the Google Sheet that has, I went in today, and it looks like a lot of you have posted on week 1 as well as week 2. So if you have any questions on that, please let me know. I have submitted the grades for week 1, Form A and B. As long as you've completed those all, they are in there. You will see those posted. Week 2 will be this week. I did not completely go through all of week 2's because I know we still have a few days left in the week, so I want to make sure that I give everyone time to get that done before I put any grades in. Are there any questions on the weekly assignments that anyone would like to ask right now? And if you do have a question or a comment, you can feel free to unmute yourself and ask it live, or put it in the chat and I'll monitor over here along the side. All right, I will go to the next one. And the thoughts from Forum 1A. This course specifically was designed, so this first unit or week was really designed to give you all some resources for those teachers who might say, I don't need to change. Maybe our scores are good enough. And when you see those changes that need to happen and those resistant teachers, you know, a lot of you in your comments said that you recognize that there's, you know, a battle to fight, and there's lots of reasons that go into kind of this struggle that we're facing. So the very first thing that I have here that I noted, and I kind of tried to synthesize all of the comments from everyone's post and the comments, not that yet, is recognizing that education is important. And I know that that's a lot of you talked about the cultural differences between the United States and other countries. Some other countries don't educate all of their students. I think that's something that's different about the United States, is that we educate all of our students. I personally think that's a wonderful thing. It also comes with its own challenges, which then makes us work harder. But I think as a country, I think we're doing the best for our kids. And I think that's, we have to continue to do that. I always reminded my teachers that there are so many factors outside of our school that we have to deal with, but that we can't change. So I always said that our goal was to maximize every minute that we have with our kids and work so hard to give them the best that we can. And I think that kind of leads to our next one, where there was a lot of discussion about the stagnant scores and that need to focus on the workforce skills, the application piece. If you have not heard of Chapter 339, I might be surprised. I know in our district, there's a lot of talk of 339, but it's not identified as Chapter 339. You're going to hear, and several of you talked about the focus on those workforce development skills. I know one of you talked about 5th grade and financial literacy and doing budgets and that kind of thing. There is now a requirement for schools. It will be included in the PSSA audits. Actually, I was audited this year, as my school was, and we had to produce the Chapter 339 documents and these workforce readiness artifacts that every grade level must now have. So if you've heard about, collecting artifacts, and your guidance counselors have probably been involved in a lot of trainings, as well as your principals, and if it's probably not identified as 339, it's probably something about workforce development. So I really think that as curriculum leaders, we can help with this idea of inquiry and problem solving and critical thinking. And those are the workforce development skills that our students so desperately need. There was some talk about trauma-informed care and the trauma that our students bring. I have a feeling probably a lot of districts in the next couple of years are going to be training teachers on trauma-informed care and ACEs, those adverse childhood experiences. I think along with that comes an understanding from teachers, as well as a need for additional personnel within our schools, because teachers themselves cannot always manage all of the needs of all of the trauma. So again, I think that teachers have an understanding and a way to get students help, and that is part of the training that kind of needs to happen. There was a lot of talk about the investment in early childhood education. Carolyn, great, yes. 3rd through 5th, actually each of those grade levels will be required to do the college and career, the college and career readiness and keeping those artifacts. So I'm super excited to hear that. The investment in early childhood education, a lot of you talked about the fact that your districts have only half-day kindergarten and kind of what that might look like or have an impact. Several of you talked about how early childhood education has changed for your own children, and what right now I believe there has been a push for early childhood ed and the rigor that our kids kind of experience in those environments. So I think that will only help us in the future. There was an issue that was kind of raised in the week this week and last week actually, and that was this idea of exposure to content, that there's not really a deep understanding. And if you look at curricula and kind of standards from some of our other competitive countries, their curriculum and their standards are very small and they go very deep. And I think the question was raised, should we go smaller and deeper instead of, wide and kind of shallow? I am actually a proponent of that idea. And because if we can create really good problem solvers, critical thinkers, collaborators, they're going to be able to solve mathematical problems that they might not have seen before. And especially if they have that really deep understanding, I'm going to skip down to 2 down where it says difficulty with higher level thinking, tasks, and drawing conclusions, because I think these two link together. And that is, we unfortunately teach our students algorithms. I don't think we teach nearly as many as we used to. But our teachers, most of our teachers were taught using algorithms. And unfortunately, sometimes we fall back into teaching the way we were always taught instead of teaching what we know now to be that whole idea of number sense and true problem solving, which is really the crux of the issue with Common Core and that parents don't understand, because it was easy. I just did this, but they don't really know why they just did this. So, our push to really change the way that we teach math sometimes falls back a little bit, I think, because algorithms are easy, and that's not what our students need right now. They need to become problem solvers and thinkers. So that difficulty with higher level thinking tasks becomes, I think, even more pronounced the older the students get. I remember teaching an AP Calc class, and I would not teach algorithms at all, and my students just wanted to know how to do it. And I would pose lots and lots of questions to them, and they would get so frustrated because I was not teaching them the algorithm, and they just want to know how to do it and get it done. So I think that it's just a struggle, and something that as curriculum leaders and coaches, that we have to make sure we keep that focus on not falling back into, quote, what is easy and those algorithms. And that really comes to the teacher training that absolutely must be ongoing. I remember thinking about my teaching staff and thinking it's not that they don't want to do this. I think it's more that they don't know how or haven't really been trained. So when I had a staff that's a little bit more veteran, and they were teaching similar to how they were taught and kind of skipping some of the more intricate problem solving, inquiry type things, to just teaching the algorithms so the kids could, quote, do the problem, where that really wasn't what we were trying to teach them. It was to become problem solvers. So I think that coaching and ongoing training is super important, and a lot of you mentioned that in your post this week. The very last note I had here is really something that I preach to all of my teachers. And I think it was Bill who had this in his, that he starts every unit or topic with an inquiry activity. We could teach students algorithms all day, but they learn the algorithm and then they, do it for the test and then they forget it. Where research has shown if you start with a topic with an inquiry activity where students are figuring out a problem or a topic or creating, some kind of understanding around a problem, and then they come to, well, now I don't know what to do with this. And that this part is then where we teach the math concept that goes along with it. And now they have a link, an anchor to why they're learning what it is that they're learning. And not all curriculum is set up this way. I know some of the current programs are, but when you go to really sit down and look at your units and your topics that you're teaching, my suggestion is to look for those, harder inquiry or problem-solving questions, and start with that and go from there. Because your students then will have an understanding as to why they're learning to solve one-step equations, or why they're learning to solve an inequality, or why they're learning to multiply two numbers together, because they need to solve this problem. Otherwise, they're just learning something because we're telling them to. So those are some topics from the first forum for building urgency. Again, this is designed to create an understanding around why we need to change and make sure that we're doing the best that we can in math education for our kids. Anyone else have anything that they would like to share with those thoughts?
Well, as far as, can you hear me? Hello? I heard someone say yes. I felt as though as far as like teaching
Samantha.
strategies.
Oh, there we go. Those are a little later, I think.
Can she not hear me?
All right. If you have some thoughts, you can unmute yourself or you can type them in the chat session there. I'll bring up what I did use for, or did right here for week 2. Again, I haven't read through all of them. And really, week 2 starts us into our grade level span books along with the leader's guide. And the first unit in week 2 is really on collaborative teams. So I wrote down here kind of what I briefly scanned through some of them. We talked about the 4 PLC agreements and questions. The difference between cooperative and collaborative. And I always make sure that I talk about this during week 2. And we'll actually hit on week 2 in our next session. But kind of keeping that in the back of your mind. That the analysis of student work is with teachers and with students. That's a piece that I think we often miss as teachers, is engaging the students in the analysis of their work and really making sure that the focus is on student learning and making sure that we adjust our instruction based on the student learning and the analysis of the student work. Carolyn, that's a great point, that students start to form strategies on their own when you teach the content. And you know, if students can create a strategy that works for them, that's much better than me teaching them some algorithm that they're probably going to forget eventually anyway. So getting them to be able to be a constructivist in their learning and being able to kind of put all of that content together is certainly what we're aiming for. For those of you who have not had much work with PLCs, there's a website here that I put on, which is allthingsplc.info. There is a plethora of information regarding PLCs and collaborative teams and kind of the work that we'll be doing throughout this course. So that you may want to bookmark that, or if you haven't already visited there, to visit that site. As we go through, I'm going to talk a little bit tonight about our professional development model, which is one of the projects at the very end. And what I'm hoping that you will start to think about is what kind of professional development your teachers need. Some of you have mentioned several already, so you're just going to pick one for the project for the class, and I'm really hoping that what you will pick to do is something that you can actually use. I've talked to several of you via email and phone about the course, and my goal for you leaving here is that you have some strategies to use with your teachers as a math coach. You have some ideas on how to work with teachers to improve instruction in our standards-based world that we live in, and that you have some materials to take along with you that will be helpful in whatever position that you're doing, and hopefully some professional development that you can do with your teachers. Here on the screen, you'll see actually our next 2 weeks, which is we're going to be talking about the standards for math content and the standards for mathematical practice. A few of you have already mentioned these in your introductions when you wrote them, so I was super excited to see that. One thing that we talked about tonight was productive struggle. That's one of the mathematical practices that we need to make sure that we engage our students in persevering through those problems and making sure that we challenge them and keep pushing them and not, take that easy way to teach them those algorithms. Okay, so this is kind of the part that will also be the same. I just make sure that I answer any questions on any of the 3 major assignments and the coaching log. So the error pattern analysis was actually the video that I posted, so I won't talk too much about this because there was a video and I've answered several questions. But again, the process is to think about the errors that students have made in your classroom and then talk with them to kind of calibrate your thinking against what they actually were thinking to see kind of how right you were. Sometimes we make assumptions about errors and it really wasn't what the student was thinking at all. And I think that talking with students and analyzing their work with them can really shed some light on thought processes and maybe some simple connections that we didn't make with them that we need to. Carolyn, that's a great point. You are absolutely right that there are just some teachers who are impatient for that productive struggle to take place. And it is hard when you are kind of sitting there and the students are like, just tell me what to do. And nope, you need to be able to formulate this in your mind and work through that problem solving, being those critical thinkers. So those inquiry and problem-based learning activities are certainly so important when we're trying to train their brain really to think differently and to think mathematically. And so it's super exciting to be able to see it happen. And it's also frustrating because the students are not necessarily, when you're just starting this process with students, they find it super frustrating as well. But it's certainly absolutely worth it. Any questions on the error pattern analysis? Just checking to see if anyone's unmuting themselves. I don't want to miss you. All right, I'll go to the next one, which is our scenario responses. And I've given, in this project, there are 3 scenarios, and I just ask you to respond to them as a coach. So I want you to just start thinking about how I would react in this situation based upon kind of what we've been talking about in class. So again, it's a narrative form. You can submit your file to Moodle. I know sometimes Moodle can be a little finicky about accepting files. You can always feel free to email them to me as well. If you can't get it to upload or aren't sure exactly where to put it, you can email it to me, and I do grades kind of on the backside, so I don't really use the way that they have it set up. So feel free to email me or submit the file right there through any of these assignments. Or email me with questions and we can work you through that. So again, the scenario responses are really just a chance for you to think about how you would utilize this information that you're learning in class and we're talking about in kind of real world situations. And the last the major project is the professional development model, which I'll talk a little bit about later, but I just want you to start thinking about a training need for your staff and kind of how you would work to address that. Questions that I often get for this is there a specific format that you need to use? The answer is no. I know some districts use specific forms for professional development or templates that you need to use. You can use whatever your district uses or whatever is most comfortable for you in order to make sure that I just get the information that I need. I have some templates and things to use, but I think oftentimes they kind of hinder students more than they help. So feel free to set up the training however you wish. Sometimes students will bullet, create an agenda for me. with the supporting documents and that kind of thing. But I really want this to be something that you believe you could use in whatever it is, position it is that you will be doing next year or even over the summer. I know some of you said that you're going to be doing some things over the summer. That's great. If you want to do something and then, give to me what you did. But really, as long as it's a professional development for math, I know someone did talk to me a little bit about you're doing a science thing, because some of you are math and science, and we've talked about that, so that's good to go. If you have any ideas that you need to run by me or need some ideas for what professional development you might want to choose, let me know. But I think as you go through the next couple weeks and really delve into some of the district analysis, that you'll start to see some needs pop up, among some of these topics. The very last thing is the field experience portfolio, and there is the form online underneath the field experience part at the very top that you will just download. You can handwrite it and then scan it to me and email it. You can type it in there and have your principal sign it and then email it to me. However you would like to get me that documentation, you may do so. But again, it's 10 hours for each of the courses within the coaching certification program. And you do not have to fill out every part of that grid. You can fill out one part, but I would suggest that by the time you're done with your courses, you have some hours in each of them throughout the courses that you take, but you don't have to have something in each box for every course. For those of you who are new to the program, if you want to call me, or we can chat via email, or have another Zoom for us just together to talk about this field experience portfolio. If you have questions, we can certainly do that as well. If you just shoot me an email or a text, or I will be on here when we're finished. So that is actually the content for tonight. It's a little bit shorter because we only had week 1 to talk about, but I wanted to make sure that anybody who has any questions, feel free to stay on the line. If you don't, I hope that you all have a wonderful end to the school year. I know today was my last day with teachers, so it's been super crazy. But now summer kind of work kind of starts for me. So I'm looking forward to that. I hope you all have a wonderful end to the school year with your students. If so, I know some of you still have students, some of you are done. And those who are missing us tonight, some of them are at graduation. So that's exciting as well. Again, thank you. And if you have any questions, feel free to stay on the line. Otherwise, have a good evening. Thanks, Jessica. I will. Thanks, Carolyn. Bye-bye. Samantha, great. Let me see if I can unmute you here. All right, Samantha, I did unmute you. I don't know if you have a microphone that's connected to your computer, or if you want to type them, or I can give you a call, whatever's easiest for you. You're right, I can't hear you. Would you like me to actually call you if you put your number in here? That way we can just talk about it. Great, I will give you a phone call here. It should be coming up from a 717 number. My number is 717-801-8457. So I'll give you a call and we can chat on the phone. 461-2904. All right, I'm going to mute myself here, and that way we can end this for those of you watching. Thanks so much.